You work yourself to the bone through university, get a job in business management. You work hard and accumulate experience and influence over the course of a few years. But one little problem: you just can't seem to go up, to leave that spot. You just can't seem to get promoted. Then a proposal comes, one that will definitely make you ponder: how much do I desire this? Tabitha was a warrior among women, a prodigy. She graduated with the best grades from Harvard University, a child gifted from heaven itself. I'm sure it's no surprise to you if I told you that she was loved by her family and friends, and she was the pride of her parents. Getting a job in Azazel Productions and Co. was basically the biggest dream anyone could have ever fulfilled. That was Tabitha's goal once she graduated, and after a thorough interview, she landed the job on a platter. Her joy wasn't at its peak though, as she wanted so much more. Her family was already proud of her. Her mom, dad, and brother all praised her success, but all that wasn't enough for her. See, Tabitha had one little issue: the need to impress. It was so bad, she always worked herself extra hard in everything to achieve perfection. In her work, she always went the extra mile to achieve her goals. Projects that would take 1 week would take Tabitha 2 weeks to complete because she would aim for perfection. This, in and of itself, isn't really so bad, but for Tabitha, she needed that extra validation to keep going. Imagine her pain when she couldn't get a promotion, even after 3 years of working hard and going overboard to achieve it. She was frustrated and at her wits' end because of this. She'd made countless visits to the managing director's office on this matter. Mr. Belial had always constantly assured her that she wasn't ready for the promotion. In time, he would determine if she was ready for the promotion or not. Today was one of those days. She gripped the sleeves of her white office shirt tight as she listened to his talk of her not being ready.
Miss Tabitha, I'm afraid you're just not ready for this at all. Like I've told you several times before, I didn't know if you were.
But sir, it's been years already, and many new workers have been promoted to the Luciferian offices already, and I've been stuck here in the Lesser Daemon's office. Mr. Belial sighed and put his hand gently on the table as he shifted forward in his seat.
The price to pay for this promotion is quite high, Miss Tabitha. All the others know this, and they've left everything behind for this level. Looking at you, you're just not ready. This has nothing to do with the amount of work you've done in this organization. It's just the way of things around here. The way the boss arranged it all. She tried picturing what the boss, Mr. Azazel, might look like. No one had actually met him before, at least no one below the Luciferian ranks. It was one of the reasons Tabitha felt the pressing need to get the promotion. Everyone is, after all, curious about the person who signs their paychecks. Apparently, those who saw him were not only paid a huge and ridiculous amounts of money. Rumors had it that he offered power and influence unlike anything one could imagine, but at a cost. Tabitha had always thought that cost was pure hard work and dedication. But after giving all that for 3 years and getting absolutely nowhere, she knew that something else must definitely be involved. Mr. Belial looked at her with quite an inquisitive kind of interest, like there was a code about her he was trying to crack. Tabitha started to feel uncomfortable. She shifted from side to side in her seat. Mr. Belial spoke. If you were so hell-bent on getting promoted,
to the Luciferian sectors. I'll tell you exactly what you have to do.
Are you a fan of the spooky, the bizarre, and the phenomenal, delivered both in history and story formats? Well, if that's the case, then this is definitely the only place for you to be. Because here at Supernatural Detectives, we delve and immerse ourselves totally into the world beyond ours, to unveil its secrets and learn its mysteries, and also to get spooked while we do so. If that sounds interesting to you, do leave us a like and subscribe to the channel to get access and notified when we drop more amazing content. Now, back to the story. She got home that day with a heart as heavy as a wet sack of rocks. She really couldn't believe what she had to do to get promoted. No wonder it was so hard to rise to the ranks in this organization. She couldn't even believe Mr. Belial could make such a request from her. She really needed the promotion, but she wasn't that desperate, right? She asked herself as she went about her night routine. If that was the cost of a promotion, was it really worth it? Was the money and influence attached worth a lifelong regret and pain? She lay on her bed as she had a flashback of the conversation she had earlier with the managing director.
Since you're so interested in rising above the ranks, I'll tell you exactly what you have to do to be favored in the boss's eyes.
He stood up gently from his seat with a grim expression on his face. He gently approached her and sat on the table directly in front of Tabitha. Her heart was racing as she had never been this close to him before. He leaned in closer and whispered,
To gain Mr. Azazel's favor, you have to offer up the most important thing in your life to him.
She thought about all the things that were precious to her. If her time was that precious thing to him, then she had already given all that up already. What more? Mr. Belial smiled and said,
The most important thing to any being born on the face of this planet is their family. If you offer them up as sacrifice to him, he will be pleased with you and give you the promotion you so much desire. Think about it. Everyone who is in the top league has done the same thing, and it's not just this company. The whole world operates on this principle as well.
She couldn't even make a sound or believe what she just heard. She left his office and kept having millions of thoughts racing through her head all at once ever since. As she lay in bed that night, she thought about how possible it was, how true it could be. She barely interacted with those on the upper floors, those who'd supposedly given up their entire families for power and wealth. Could they really have offered their families' lives? Was that even the meaning of a sacrifice? This is the modern world after all. It could probably mean having them stand as guarantors for her or something. But deep down, she knew that it was something way more sinister than that. It could never be that simple. The next day was her day off. She took the time to visit her family in the eastern part of the huge city. They welcomed her and were all overjoyed to see her. At dinner that night, as they all talked and joked, she was completely lost in thought and barely participated in the conversation. She had already formulated a plan for her next day at work. As she bade farewell to her family that evening, she began to plan out her move. She was going to find out what really went on in the upper floors. She got to work the next day and didn't carry out her plan until after work. She took the elevator leading to the upper floors and stopped when she got to floor 66. She got out of the elevator quietly, as the last thing she needed was to be caught by one of the security guards on duty. No one besides the MD, the boss, and everyone who'd been promoted were authorized to be in the upper floors. She snuck around silently as she looked around. She actually had no idea what she was looking for, but just had a feeling that she would know when she saw it. She looked around the elaborate offices and stores and found nothing of particular interest. till she took a turn to the right, just a few steps from the last office, and heard a very unmistakable sound, the sound of people talking. She moved towards the source of the sound and gasped when she turned a corner sharply and saw a figure seated in the seat of the boss. He was huge. He easily took up the entire seat and had a really bulbous looking head and a very broad shoulders. She could have sworn his skin shone with a reddish hue. She was so entranced by what she was seeing, she didn't notice that there was someone else standing in the office. The hulking figure of the boss turned slowly toward her direction. She quickly hid behind the wall and listened carefully as her heart beat very loudly in fear. She could hear someone moving towards her direction now. "Crap! I've been found out," she whispered. She began moving slowly away from the office and towards the exit when she heard, "Boss, we have an intruder." She lost all sense of stealth and started running as fast as her leg would carry her away from this nightmarish place. As she got to the corner leading to the elevator, the only quick exit, she was immediately stopped by two figures wearing hoods. She backed up a bit as they approached, while chanting in a strange tongue.
You seem scared, Miss Tabitha.
She turned towards the direction of his voice. It was the boss, Mr. Azazel. Up close, she could see how huge he really was. At least 7.5 feet tall, with the widest of proportions. She looked at his hands and thought how easy it would be for him to crush a tiny skull in those giant saucers. He moved closer and she noticed his skin. It really had a weird kind of reddish hue to it.
There's no need to be afraid, Miss Tabitha. Yes, it is kind of a huge sin for lesser workers to come up the higher ranks without permission. But an exception has been made for you, courtesy of the managing director, Mr. Belial. You have quite an impressive resume, I must say. I'm sure he told you the terms and conditions to being promoted to the higher ranks in this company. It's something everyone else has done quite easily, and they have all gained considerably from it.
She trembled at those words. How could anyone agree to those horrendous terms? But as she looked closely at him, the more time she spent around him, the lesser she thought of how bad it was to sacrifice one's family for power, influence, and money. It was as if her very values were being stripped from her. She felt like she could commit any crime and do anything easily without regrets and without considering consequences. It felt like she had no use for those minor things anymore. He was giving off a different kind of energy, and she could feel herself accepting it as hers.
So, Miss Tabitha,
He said as he leaned closer.
what do you say? We could have that promotion right now if you just give the word. Tabitha felt like she
Wasn't herself anymore. She looked at him with sweat and determination dripping from her pores. I really need that promotion, sir. And I love my family, but if they're holding me back from transitioning to the next big phase, then I see nothing wrong in letting them go. After saying that, Mr. Azazel smiled and rose to his full height. He then spoke in a loud voice.
let the ritual begin.
Before the ritual could be carried out, Tabitha had to change into a long robe with a hood. She joined the others in a huge section of the building, which could easily have been a storage room for a whole lot of supplies. As she got closer to the entrance, she noticed how bright it was in there. There were dozens of people present, all dressed in the same manner as she was. She moved and was hit with a huge wave of heat. Looking closely over the rows of people, she noticed a huge and deep gash in the floor, just a few feet away from her. The light was coming from that pit, and it wasn't just light, it was actual fire. That explained the heat. A tall hooded figure approached her and asked.
Are you ready?
She replied softly, "Yes." Chanting began from every corner of the room. It felt like they were trying to summon something from that flame. Now that she gave it some thought, the fire seemed to be pulling her in, tugging at her soul to draw it in. As the chanting stopped, something huge emerged from the pool of fire. It was Mr. Azazel. He had 3 dummy figures in hand.
Here, take these and smash them to the ground. Once that is done, you would lose your family and gain everything you've always wanted.
Tabitha took the figures from him and inspected them in bewilderment. They looked exactly like her father, mother, and brother. She held on tightly to them as Mr. Azazel spoke again.
Just so you know, you're the only one capable of starting and finishing this spell. Once you smash it, everything you want will be given to you.
At that exact moment, Tabitha had a brief moment of clarity. This was wrong. She was just about to offer up a family on a platter because of some promotion. These people had loved her, brought her up, encouraged her, and suffered just so she could be here today. Where in the world would this be seen as anything other than ungratefulness? As she thought about all this, she began weeping in regret. I can't do it. They're everything to me. I just can't kill them. I'm sorry.
You're sorry.
Mr. Azazel asked in a mocking tone.
You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. You can't back down now. Finish it.
Tabitha replied. I know you will find ways to kill them, even if I don't go through with this. I know I can never live with that guilt. That is why I'm offering my life in exchange for theirs. Please, she cried as she thought about all the beautiful moments she'd had with her family. She cried more because she knew she was just about to kill them. As she stepped into the pit of fire and the flames began to dance around her, she had one last moment of relief, knowing that in the end, she'd chosen the right thing. And that was true validation.